Two members of Pussy Riot have fled Russia, and they did it so they don't get prosecuted. If you guys can remember, last week we did the story about how 3 of the members were sentenced to 2 years in prison after they participated in this protest at an Orthodox Church. And of course, they were protesting the fact that the Orthodox Church has very, very close ties to Putin. But the 2 members that actually fled Russia did the right thing, because authorities in Russia were looking for them, they wanted to prosecute them, and they were likely to also serve a few years in prison as well. So I don't know how they managed to do this. No one really knows where they are at this point, but however they did it, I'm proud of them. I'm glad that they did it. I definitely think that they should have the right to protest. Protests are not meant to be convenient. That's something that I've said on this show day in and day out. So what are your thoughts on this, John?
I think that here's what the other 12 members of Pussy Riot should do. Flee Russia.
Yeah.
They're going to end up going to jail. Putin's not going to give it up. I mean, they're not getting out of the news. Like, this is going to be a continued story. The 2 members who left said that they're going to be recruiting foreign feminists to prepare new protest actions in different countries. So this could get even bigger in the coming months, and I don't think that Putin's going to like that. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to let that stuff slide. So I think that the other members should leave. Now, one interesting thing that happened is that during the, I'm not sure if you covered this previously, but during the reading of the verdict, one of the band members who had escaped arrest played the Pussy Riot's latest song, Putin Sets the Fires of Revolutions, from the balcony of an apartment building across the street.
Yeah, that was definitely ballsy.
How did they not get caught?
I think that they're incredible. The fact that they didn't get caught is a little amazing, especially because they're kind of, their apparel is flashy, it's attention grabbing. So I don't know if they changed the way that they dress. I don't know how they remained under the radar. As you can tell, for a while they weren't under the radar. During the sentencing, they were pretty brazen about the fact that they're members of Pussy Riot. But I feel like they need to have the right to be brazen, right?
Yeah.
They should have the ability to protest in any way that they want, as long as it's not violent, as long as it doesn't harm others. In this case, all they did was walk into an Orthodox church and, perform their, what was it called? The punk prayer?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I think they called it the punk prayer.
But it was hooliganism, according to the Russian government.
Hooliganism, which is the most ridiculous charge ever.
No, look, I agree with you. They should have the right to do that, but I don't see it happening from homegrown protests in Russia. Like it's just too entrenched, the current power system in Russia. And I think that maybe if they take it international, they can raise more awareness about it, but he doesn't seem like the type of person to make concessions easily, I would imagine.
Right.
And so I worry that if they stay, they're just inevitably going to be arrested.
Right. I'm glad that they left. I think that was the right call. And they can continue their activism in another country, which is what they're planning on doing. I get really scared that we're headed in this direction. And I know. Every time I say this, people are like, what are you talking about? That's such an extreme point of view. But it's really not. I mean, look at the way protesters are treated in this country. Yeah, maybe we don't throw them in prison for 2 years, and maybe our politicians aren't as brazen about the punishment they give protesters. But in reality, when you look at the way Occupy protesters were treated, when you look at the brutality and the excessive force that police enforcement used against Occupy protesters, I don't think it's that crazy to compare countries. And I'm not saying they're exactly similar. Don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say. But of course, authority will always have hostility toward people who speak out against them. And the question is, are we going to continue to fight back? And are we going to continue to protest and be inconvenient, which I think protesters should be? Or are we going to allow authority to continue stomping on us? As they kind of did with the protest. With the Occupy protesters.
Yeah, we saw that both in Oakland and in New York City. But there is some good news too. A district judge recently, in the last few days, I think it was, ruled that universities can't segregate where you can have free speech rights. Like, these free speech zones are not constitutional. Now, that's obviously not the Supreme Court, but this is how our system works, is that the top wants more power, but hopefully from other avenues we can fight back against that.